Hello, Jordan Gray.
Hello, Stu Whiffen. Are you all right?
I'm all right. I'm all right. We've just had a little chat about the ridiculous amounts of exciting stuff that's happening to you. I mean, only in recent weeks you've absolutely owned Edinburgh. You just destroyed the Fringe. You then played the
Thanks, man.
Palladium. You then reshaped modern television. I'll tell you what, a podcast, yeah.
Yeah, the podcast, man. I mean, it was always in the back of my mind. I wanted to do what you do. It's the most fun I have is chatting to you. Like that's not even an exaggeration. The chatting with the people that you know is the most fun. And because of how fun it is, I sort of have put it to the back of my mind that like right now, every day is back to back to back to back, and the podcast admin has had to slip to the bottom of the priority list. So I've got the best producer in the world producing my Transplaining podcast, a new podcast, who's picking up all of my slack, and I think he seems happy to do it. He smiles whenever I see him. He's smiling a lot. So it's like I've got the best life. I get to do the fun bit, and he does all the hard work. I mean, I don't know for you if it's all the same. Like it's all like the same process.
Oh yeah, with every podcast or pod bubble or everything, yeah, I do the lion's share of everything. I carry everyone.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I only like the fun bits.
Yeah.
Well, tell us all about transplaining.
So it's like it comes from that idea of I'm one of them people where if someone asks me something and I don't know the answer, I won't. I'll just give them an answer anyway. I'm one of those people where if I don't know something, I just make it up. And I think my dad does it as well. He's definitely like sort of a couch. What's the word? Couch punter or a couch pundit. You know, a sofa pundit. Like watching watching the 100-meter sprint, he'd be like, "Oh, if he'd have only run faster, he'd have won that." You're like, yeah, it's good advice, excellent advice. I'm like that definitely. So transplaining comes from the idea, obviously, a play on
Essentially,
man's.
Jordan, that is good
Yeah.
advice, though.
It's the best advice.
Like,
That's what I don't know if it's what their trainers are saying. Imagine Rocky Balboa's what's his name, Mick. You gotta do Rock. You gotta
Yeah.
punch him more than he punches you.
sorry, when you said what his trainers are doing, I instantly thought about the ones on his feet.
His shoes, what his shoes are up to. That's a different film. You gotta do Rock. You gotta do up your shoelaces. That's where you're falling down so much. that's why that's Rocky's best advice. It's not about how hard you can get hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep going forward. It's because his shoes are always undone. Do your shoelace up, you're not going to fall
There
down
you
as
go.
much. And that's basically what transplaining is about, Stuart. It's a it's a retrospective on all 5 Rocky films. What it is, it's a play on mansplaining, obviously, and I'm transgender. It just seemed like a nice little play on words. I get to bring in people that I like, of note, and friends and up and comers in the comedy industry and film industry. We're only early days, but the slate of people who've got coming in is amazing. Love for you to join us at some point if you would, because the premise
Yes, please.
is that we get a special guest and then an equally special co-host every single episode. So it's double your money, bang for your buck. And the co-host and I attempt to explain one big question and one small question that our special guest brings us. So, for example, the lovely Nish Kumar, he asked, his big question was, how do we get people to care about the end of the world? And his small question was, should I watch the Qatar World Cup? I'd argue that's not as small a question as he thought it was when he brought it in. It's quite a complicated question. And that's usually the case. The small questions become really big. I thought people would ask about wagon wheels and things, but it tends to be really big. Recorded yesterday with our lovely mutual friend Pip, and he asked, by the time this comes out, presumably this will be out, so I can tell you his small question. So his big question was representation, question mark, which we read as how do we solve representation in film and media. That's quite a big question. His small question was, why is he still online? Like, why is he still on Twitter, and why has he stayed online? Because it's an absolute garbage fire. That's not as small a question as he thought it was, and that took,
That's
you
a
really
massive
dig into
question.
stuff like that, isn't it? But then he's got a massive brain, unlike us. He don't work hard. He's got a massive brain, whereas you and I, we're hard workers with tiny brains. That's so out of context for people that are listening. There's a little inside joke there. You can get a little inside. Stick that on the Patreon. So that the show is about explaining things to clever people with having little to no expertise in the subject that they've asked about. And I think that's really fun because it just devolves into silliness, but we get some real stuff out of it. And then audience questions. People can always send in advance to the podcast questions they'd like explaining. Those ones tend to be a bit sillier. What scientifically is the best time of day to have a shower was a good one. We got into that. It was quite fun. What do you reckon?
I mean, spoiler alert. What is it? I mean, let me have a guess then. 6 a.m.
Why'd you say that? Because you get dirty at night. Not like that.
Well, yeah, obviously, like not sexy dirty, but like you get obviously you just laying in a pit of sweat and skin and stuff. So and obviously first thing in the morning.
That's your choice, Stu. It's not a ubiquitous experience. That's your life. Sorry to interrupt, but you said that like that was just a universal truth. A pit of sweat and skin.
All right. What a great name for a podcast that will be.
That is great.
All right. Well, what is the optimum time to shower?
I'm going to surprise you, Stu. The best time to shower, scientifically speaking, is 24/7 without interruption. Because, as Pip pointed out, it depends when you last showered. Because the last time you showered, you're going to be dirty as 24 hours past that point. So it's sort of chicken and egg. The only real way to guarantee cleanliness is to just stay in the shower all your whole life. It's not practical advice, but it's the answer. So there you go.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about how the concept of the podcast come about, Jordan.
Sorry,
Tell me a little bit about how the concept of the podcast come about. Because was it? I mean, because you've dabbled in radio and such, and you've been an incredible podcast guest on multiple podcasts, and we've had the pleasure of having you on lots of ours podcasts and stuff. So when you decided you were going to do a podcast, did you just think Transplaining? Oh, that's a really good play on words. I'll build a podcast around that one title just because it's an amazing title, or did you have an idea for a podcast and then you think, oh, that would work?
That's a really good question because it's a bit of both, and it oftentimes. But same as with my Edinburgh show, is it a bird? Working backwards from a pun is an excellent way to start because you sort of got something to hinge it from. It's the Carl Pilkington way of doing things. That's whenever you'd hear him talking to Steve and Ricky, Steve and Ricky, and he'd do his little features. It was always working backwards from a pun. And even one time they were like, I can't remember what the pun was, and they were like, "So what's it about?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." It's like, so you've only got the title. You've literally only got the title. The price the rice is right, and it was guess the price of my local takeaways rice. I think that was his premise that he started with, because he started with the rice is right. The podcast come about because I joined independent talent group. I was signed with my agents just before Fringe, and we always spoke about a podcast. And they've got an in-house production company, Off Script, do amazing. They do the Alan Partridge Oast House podcast. It's like this weird, it's just really good. I mean, good company. And they did ask me if I had ideas, and I chucked out a bunch of puns first because I just knew that I just wanted to chat with people, and anything that elicits more conversation, particularly if a guest can come in and ask a question. That's a bit of a flip, isn't it? You know, they come in and ask something. Usually what I do straight away is I turn the question around and say, well, why is that on your mind? Because then clearly, it's like when someone asks you what superpower would you have, they're just waiting for you to finish so they can tell you theirs. That's always what that question is.
100%.
So if they, definitely don't even bother to just have a quick answer ready so they can tell you what they want to tell you. So if someone comes in and says, as Pip did, what representation? How do we sort that out? Chances are he's been thinking about that. So we say, why's that been on your mind, Pip? And then, of course, he's got his explanation, and then we figure it out together. Like therapy, most people have the answer in their head when they come in, and you're paid to be like, well, how does that make you feel? That's sort of that works for the podcast as well. Just always bring that out of people. And the guests and the co-host, it's really nice because the dynamic is that I bring somebody in that I know quite well. I had Rich Wilson and Richard Herring together on the podcast. I know Rich quite well, never met Rich Herring before. So it was that's lovely. An embarrassment of riches, I called them. It's a nice little confluence of riches. And so that three-way dynamic for me, as you well know, is a perfect balance for banter. It's like you bring the best out of each other if there's somebody you know very well, and then a new person, and that's it. That has always seemed to work for me. I used to love watching Ricky and the Russell Brand, both those shows. You know, they've got their third, haven't they? Carl obviously going on to do great things, and Trevor Locke with Matt Morgan and Russell Brand. It just seemed like a perfect dynamic.
Absolutely. Well, like, who else can we expect to see? I mean, you've rattled off some incredible guests already, Jordan. Who else is out there now to be listened to, and what's coming up?
So already recorded. We're only on episode 4. Nish Kumar, Sophie Duker, Richard Herring, Scroobius Pip, Sarah Keyworth, Rich Wilson, Paul Sinner, and Jodie Mitchell. We've recorded so far. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've got Russell Kane booked in. I know Simon Pegg and Richard Osmond are on the horizon. Both been very nice to me, kind to me in my career of late, so they're both coming on. Susie Ruffle. These are people that I've seen in my diary because someone else books my diary, so those names are in. So I don't think I'm making these up. These are definitely supposed to be joining us. Chatted to my lovely Paloma Faith, my coach from The Voice, and subsequently a great supporter. She'll be on at some point. Just it's nice, just really nice people that have done me a solid. Now I'm asking them to do me another one. Like there's no reciprocatory thing here. They're getting less out of it than I am, but the chats have been fun, and it's doing really well. Can't believe how quickly it's taken off. I mean, I've got the support of my agency, but we was on. Someone sent me a screenshot of the front page of Apple Pods. That's a good thing, I think. It was quite cool that it was there.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'll take it people can just go and get it wherever they get their podcasts.
Yeah, man. Acast, Apple, Spotify, others that as well. Please, can you just fill in the gaps for me if I've missed something out that's really important podcasting, because I'm still quite new to the landscape. So like Spotify, Acast, and Apple seem quite like they're definitely people know them.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. Right, good. All right then.
Yeah.
I don't want to upset anyone.
There's millions. There's millions, but yeah.
All right then.
They're the big boys, right?
Yeah, they seem like it. If I'm on the same platforms as Hardcore Listing and the whole family, then that makes me happy. If I'm available in the same areas as those, then my life is complete.
Lovely. Jordan, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.